The assignment. Nina Morales adjusted the collar of her Earth Union jumpsuit and tried not to stare at the Karnathi warrior towering over her. "Let me get this straight," she said, squinting at the datapad again. "You want me to supervise 6 of your hatchlings. Alone. For 8 galactic cycles." The Karnathi commander, a scarred brute named Vorak, gave a low, guttural grunt.
"Yes."
She blinked. "Is this a translation error?"
"No."
Nina glanced up at the Karnathi. He was 7 feet tall, shoulders like a boulder, and had a jaw full of polished bone-like fangs. His eyes were a cold, emotionless yellow. He was, in short, exactly what you'd expect from a species known as the most feared apex predators in the Orion Arm. "I thought I was assigned to education outreach," she said. "Like, teaching your diplomats how to use utensils properly." Vorak gave a snort. "Change of orders. Diplomatic directive. Your kind insisted on cross-species early developmental empathy exposure. This is the first trial." "You mean babysitting? You will supervise, feed, redirect aggression, and prevent death."
"Yes."
"Babysitting." Nina blew out a breath and rubbed her forehead. This was not what she'd expected when she volunteered for the Galactic Exchange Initiative. Sure, she had a background in early childhood education, but that had been with human kids. Emotional, loud, unpredictable, but not scaled, clawed, and genetically programmed for dominance displays. Still, she'd made it through Earth's worst inner-city classrooms. How different could it be? She found out exactly how different it was 5 minutes into her first shift. The nursery unit was nothing like the soft, pastel-colored rooms she was used to. No toys. No books. Just padded floors, reinforced plating, and massive chew-resistant blocks the size of ottomans. 6 juvenile Karnathi, each about the size of a small earth pony, stared at her as she entered, eyes narrowed, bodies tensed. They could smell weakness. She could feel it. "Hello," she said with a friendly wave. "I'm Miss Nina. I'll be with you for the next few weeks." One of them lunged. She sidestepped on instinct, grabbed a chair leg, and used it to keep the hatchling at arm's length, not hitting, just blocking. The others started circling. She didn't flinch. Didn't yell. Just stood her ground. "You bite me," she said, calm and firm. "You lose snack privileges for the day." That made them pause. She held up a shiny silver pouch and wiggled it. "Earth peanut butter crackers," she added. "Sweet. Salty. Very rare." 6 pairs of nostrils flared. "Sit," she said. There was a long pause, and then, slowly, 3 of them obeyed. By the end of the first hour, Nina had labeled them in her head. A biter, the first attacker, obviously. A shadow, quiet, always watching. A chirper, made odd growling sounds that resembled laughter. A lump, preferred to lie in a heap and observe. A tiny, the smallest, but had the sharpest claws. A spook, flinched at loud sounds, stayed in corners. They didn't talk much. Karnathi Young learned speech late, but they understood her tone, her posture, her rhythm. She didn't match aggression with aggression. She matched it with consistency. Every time they tested her boundaries, she calmly reinforced them. No yelling. No fear. Just the same patient tone she used back in her Earth classrooms. After snack time, she pulled out a holo projector. "Story time," she said, sitting cross-legged on the floor. A few of them snarled. One knocked the projector over. She picked it back up, waited, and restarted the tale. A simple Earth fable, The Lion and the Mouse. By the end of it, Shadow had crept closer, watching the tiny holographic lion nuzzle the mouse. Spook made a soft sound Nina had never heard before. Almost like a purr. When Commander Vorak returned at the end of the cycle, he scanned the room and frowned. 2 hatchlings were sleeping against Nina's leg. One was quietly chewing a soft toy she'd stitched out of spare cloth. The others were lounging in a loose circle around her. "What did you do to them?" Vorak asked, sounding almost suspicious. "Nothing," Nina said with a small shrug. "Just talked. Listened. Gave them choices. Oh, and crackers. That helped." Vorak's eyes narrowed. "You did not use dominance displays?" "Nope. No submission pheromones?" She raised an eyebrow. I don't even know what those are. He looked genuinely disturbed. They are calm. Nina smiled. Yeah, she said. That's kind of the point. Apex predators picked a human babysitter. What happened next surprised everyone. Lessons in the den. By the end of the first week, Nina Morales had learned 3 important truths about Karnothi hatchlings. 1. They bit everything: walls, furniture, each other. 2. They responded better to eye contact and silence than yelling. 3. They were painfully, achingly lonely. For all their claws and growls, they were just kids. Kids who'd never been sung to, never been hugged, never been told, good job. In Karnothi culture, affection was a foreign concept. Strength ruled. Attachment was seen as a liability, even for the young. But Nina wasn't from Karnothi culture. She was from Earth. And on Earth, kindness was strength. Morning routines became ritual. Each cycle began with a call-and-response Nina made up on the spot. She stood at the center of the reinforced nursery room and clapped her hands twice. Ready. A few growled back at first. Then, over time, one voice, Chirper, began chirping her own version in return. Then Shadow. Then all of them. Ready. They'd echo, some louder than others. Then came stretches. Coordination games. Snack time. Nina turned simple human games like Simon Says and red light, green light into training exercises. The hatchlings didn't even realize they were learning impulse control and group movement. The real challenge came with Spook. He wouldn't join the others. He never attacked, never bit. Just watched. Curled into corners, recoiling at loud noises. Nina didn't push. She just started sitting near him while the others played. Reading aloud. Humming softly. Offering small gestures, a toy set beside him, a snack within reach, never forced. 3 days in, he nudged the toy. A day after that, he sat beside her. By the end of the week, he tugged at her sleeve when one of the others fell during a game. Chirper hurt, he whispered, voice raspy and unused. Nina blinked. You can talk, she whispered back. Spook nodded, eyes wide. But only you listen. The Karnothi adults didn't understand. Commander Vorik visited again, pacing the edge of the nursery like a confused war general watching a battlefield dance recital. Why are they touching each other? He asked, frowning at 2 hatchlings curled up together after play. They're building trust, Nina said, folding up a blanket. Bonding. Physical proximity is dangerous at this age. Only if you expect violence, she replied. I expect growth. Vorik gave her a look like she'd just said gravity was optional. Your methods are unconventional. You asked for empathy training, she said with a small smile. This is empathy. You just didn't know what it looked like. Later that cycle, Nina introduced something new. She'd spent her off hours crafting little fabric pouches, filled with soft recycled material and scented with vanilla from a Terran food pack. She called them comfort tales, something for each hatchling to carry, scent, and customize. When she passed them out, the hatchlings didn't know what to do at first. Biter growled and tossed his aside. Tiny sniffed hers, then clutched it and didn't let go for the rest of the day. That night, Nina stayed late, cataloging behavior patterns for the Coalition's Cultural Exchange Report. She didn't hear the footsteps behind her until something heavy and warm leaned against her leg. It was Shadow. His claws tapped the floor nervously. I keep this, he said, holding out the comfort tale. Nina smiled. It's yours. He lowered his head. You are pack. She blinked, heart catching in her throat. Karnothi didn't form packs. They formed ranks. Blood-based, competitive, strict. Is that what you want? She asked gently. Shadow nodded once. You're my kid, Shadow, she said softly. All of you are. The next cycle, the hatchlings formed a circle around Nina during quiet time. No one told them to. They just did. In the observation deck above, Commander Vorik stood with 2 other Karnothi elders, watching through the glass. They are different, one muttered, disapproving. They are soft, said another. This will weaken them. Vorik's yellow eyes narrowed. He said nothing. Then one of the hatchlings reached out, tiny claws brushing gently over Nina's sleeve, and let out a contented trill. Vorik exhaled slowly. "They are not soft," he said at last. "They are learning how to stand beside something without needing to tear it down." The other elders said nothing, but they watched more closely after that. The day the doors broke. It began with a flicker. The lights dimmed in the nursery, just for a moment, then flared back to normal. Nina paused mid-sentence, glancing at the overhead panels. "That's not nothing," she murmured. The hatchlings were playing quietly with their comfort tails and floor blocks. Spook was curled up near her knee. Tiny was carefully stacking food packets into what he called a hunter's fortress. Another flicker. Then came the klaxon. Red alert. Intruder breach. Section D-14. Level 2 lockdown engaged. Nina stood up instantly, heart pounding. Her fingers found the emergency beacon embedded in her belt and activated the child protocol, locking the internal doors and sending an alert to the station's emergency AI. The doors didn't close. Instead, a grinding mechanical sound echoed through the corridor, followed by silence. The station was under attack. And the autolocks had failed. Nina turned quickly to the hatchlings, who were already on their feet, claws flexed, spines rising with instinctual tension. "Listen to me," she said, kneeling. "I need everyone to stay close. No growling, no rushing off. We're a team now, remember?" Chirper looked confused. "Enemies?" "Yes," she said gently. "But we're going to be smart. Stay quiet. Stay sharp." She reached under the supply cabinet and pulled out a compact field barrier projector, standard for emergencies. It wouldn't hold against a plasma rifle, but it might buy them a few seconds. She activated it and placed it near the door. Then she began moving the furniture, slowly, efficiently, forming a loose ring of cover around the center of the room. "Shadow," she said, pointing. "You take watch at the back panel. Tiny, help me with the lights. I want them dim, just enough to see, but not enough to be seen." The hatchlings obeyed without hesitation. They didn't panic. They didn't scatter. They listened. The first intruder arrived 23 minutes later. Nina saw the glint of armor first, through the small security cam feed above the door, an armed mercenary in black market gear, scanning rooms as he advanced. Looking for hostages. Or bargaining chips. He stepped toward the nursery door and lifted his weapon. Nina didn't hesitate. She tapped the field projector's manual trigger. The barrier flared to life in a blue arc just as the door hissed open. The merc's first shot ricocheted off the shield, sending sparks across the floor. The hatchlings didn't scream. They moved. Biter lunged first, over the barricade, across the room, claws flashing. The merc spun, firing, but Shadow was already flanking from the other side. Tiny launched from a cabinet top like a scaled missile, biting into the merc's gauntlet. It wasn't perfect. Chirper took a glancing blow to the shoulder. Nina felt her blood run cold, but he got back up, snarling. The fight lasted less than 10 seconds. By the time the merc hit the floor, groaning and disarmed, Spook had tackled him from behind and pinned him down. Nina activated the emergency override on her datapad, sending the attacker's coordinates to the nearest security node. Then she knelt beside Chirper, checking his injury. Burned, but not deep. He stared at her, eyes wide. "You did not run," he whispered. "No," she said softly, touching his snout. "Because you didn't either." When the backup team finally arrived, led by a stunned station security officer, they found the merc restrained by improvised rope made from blankets and toy netting. The hatchlings sat in a circle around Nina, breathing heavily but calm. "She coordinated them?" the officer asked, staring at the playback footage. "Better than we did," came the muttered reply from one of his squad mates. Later, in the medical bay, Commander Vorik arrived. He loomed in the doorway for a long moment before stepping inside. "I reviewed the footage," he said. Nina sat beside Chirper's bed, holding his hand. "I assumed you would." "I expected death," Vorik said bluntly. Nina gave him a tired look. "Thanks for the vote of confidence." Vorik ignored the sarcasm. He approached slowly, staring at the young Karnothi now resting under light sedation. "They responded to your commands. They fought in formation. protected the weak. I didn't train them to fight, Nina said. I taught them to protect. He looked down at her. There is no difference. He paused, then added, You have changed them. She didn't respond right away. They changed themselves, she said finally. All I did was believe they could. That night, as the hatchlings slept, Nina sat on the floor of the nursery with her back against the wall, the soft glow of the ceiling lights casting long shadows across the quiet room. 6 blankets. 6 tiny bodies breathing in unison. And in the center of it all, her. Not a warrior. Not a scientist. Just a teacher from Earth. But one who had earned the respect of the galaxy's fiercest predators. The matriarch's choice. 3 days after the attack, the doors to the nursery opened to someone Nina had never met, but had heard about in hushed tones. Matriarch Cathiruan. Even Commander Vorik stood stiffly as she entered, armor polished, back bowed in respect. Nina had seen towering Karnathi warriors before. But Cathiruan was something else entirely. Ancient, massive, clawed, and draped in ceremonial bone armor that whispered of centuries of battles and victories. The hatchlings, normally a blur of movement, froze mid-play. Shadow stepped closer to Nina without a word. Cathiruan's eyes swept the room. You are the human called Nina Morales, she said. Nina stood. Not because she was told to, but because she chose to. I am. The matriarch's voice was low and rough, like gravel on steel. You were assigned to observe. To redirect. Not to interfere in the balance of our kind. I didn't interfere, Nina said calmly. I protected. You restructured their instincts. I respected them. Then taught them how to use those instincts differently. Cathiruan stepped closer. The room felt smaller, denser. Her shadow swallowed Nina whole. And if that softens them... Nina didn't blink. It didn't. They didn't hesitate to defend each other. They worked as a unit. They fought with purpose, not just instinct. They weren't soft. They were focused. Cathiruan studied her for a long, tense moment. Then she turned to the hatchlings. Come forward, she commanded. 6 small shapes moved toward her. Not with fear. Not with pride. Just quiet certainty. Have you accepted this human as part of your den? The matriarch asked. Tiny nodded first. She is our warm scale. She knows what we need before we do. She listens, added Chirper. Not with just ears. With heart. She does not command, said Shadow, but we follow. Even Spook raised his head and whispered, I do not fear her. I do not fear with her. Silence. Cathiruan nodded once, barely perceptible. Then she turned back to Nina. In Karnathi tradition, a den mother is the most dangerous being alive. Not because she strikes first, but because no one walks away after harming her young. Nina nodded, her voice soft. Sounds familiar. The matriarch slowly extended her hand. In it was a small polished shard of black bone, marked with deep etchings. This is a bond token. Given only once. Accepted only by those we name unbreakable. Nina stared at the object, unsure at first. I'm not Karnathi. No, said Cathiruan. But neither are they. Not anymore. They are the future. And you. You are already part of it. Nina reached out, took the token, and bowed slightly. Then I'll protect it. All of it. Cathiruan turned and left without another word. But the doors didn't close before Nina saw it. A faint smile, thin, sharp, and unmistakably proud. The announcement came the next day. Nina Morales was offered a new role, Cultural Integration Specialist, Cross-Species Liaison, and Early Development Coordinator. Wait, Nina said, staring at the terminal. This is an actual job? You're giving me a title. Commander Vorik looked amused for the first time ever. Your methods defied every protocol. I figured. But they worked. The matriarch has approved an expanded program. You will select the next human caregivers. She blinked. You want me to train others?
Yes.
Our young are asking for names, Nina. They want story time. Do you understand what that means? Her heart caught. Yes, she whispered. I really do. Weeks later, Nina walked through the training hall of Terrell SIX's new Unity Wing, designed for early development among predator species. Bright murals stretched across walls once covered in regulation gray. Toys and puzzles lay scattered in corners. And in the far back, 6 hatchlings played a game called Capture the Cracker. Nina sipped her tea and smiled. One of the younger recruits, a fresh-faced man from Earth, approached nervously. Ms. Morales, I heard about what you did here. The Karnothi hatchlings, the defense during the raid. It's kind of legend now. She raised an eyebrow. Legend, huh? Yes, ma'am. I mean, they said you tamed apex predators. She laughed. Not mocking, just gentle. No, she said. I didn't tame them. He frowned. Then how did you do it? She looked over her shoulder at the hatchlings, at Tiny helping Spook balance a block tower, at Biter carefully not biting. I saw them, she said softly. And I stayed. And across the galaxy, word spread. The apex predators had picked a human to raise their young. And what happened next? They started calling her Mother, being exactly who she was.